welcome to episode 53 of my Warhammer 40k Conquest review series. This week we'll be reviewing issue 53, which, as you can see, comes with some cool plastic. So we're going to open it up and have a look at what we've got in here. We have got a biker. You may know a few weeks ago we got a couple more bikers. The squad description in that issue was 3 bikers and a combat bike. So this is the third biker. Now this bunny is not single on collecting, so it is going to be going out for a competition with the other two on the end of this video. I'm going to stick on the end of this video. You guys can win some Space Marine bikes if you like, which will be cool. As always, fantastic quality on the mini. Not as good as a lot of the other stuff, but that's because this is a much older mini than a lot of the stuff we're getting. So a lot of stuff we're getting at the moment is the Primaris stuff, which is only a few years old. Some of the stuff not even that old. So of course, companies get better over time and people get better at making things. The Primaris Marines look amazing. These Marines merely look really cool. Is there a date on here? Here you go. Games Workshop, copyright 2002. So we are looking at 17-year-old molds. Well, they may have replaced the molds, but the original molds at the very least was 17 years old. So this this model, over 17 years old, still holding up. Very vicious, very meaty looking. If you want to do a Judge Dredd conversion, the Space Marine bikes will work really well for Judge Dredd bikes. As that was what they were originally based on, the Lawmaster bikes from the Judge Dredd 2000 AD universe, which is why they've got the big wide wheels and the really heavy armor plating kind of thing. They're not so much fast things as mobile baby tanks. Sorry, I've just got something in my eyes, guys. They're pretty fantastic on the battlefield. Obviously, comes with a base. Ooh. I do like these oval bases. They used to come first off on square cavalry bases, then on cavalry bases with rounded edges, which were about then on cavalry bases with rounded edges, which were about the width of the bike. These ones allow for the bike to make more base-to-base contact and for things to make more base-to-base contact with the bike. Also, frankly, they give the bike a better, more realistic footprint. People would squeeze bikes through incredibly tight bits just because they could. With those, it's more realistic as to how you'd move a bike and how you'd be skidding around. So that's pretty cool. Thing comes with twin link bolters and a Space Marine who is probably carrying a pistol, I would imagine. So that's pretty cool there. Let's say keep an eye. This will be going up, and the 2 others will be going up on the end of the video as a prize. Right, the White Scars. One of the less common chapters played. The White Scars are the original Fast Attack chapter. I know a lot of people think that the Raven Wing, that's the one. That the Raven Wing from the Blood Angels are the first Fast Attack, but they're merely kind of like the first Fast Attack that GW did chronologically, story-wise and background-wise. These guys have always been Fast Attack. Their basic premise is much more Mongol. Oh, I forgot to mention Ian, our spiritual lead. Oh, yep, actually going back, Ian, our spiritual lead, who works for Hatchet, which are a Partworks company, may be getting, well, not Ian, but Hatchet may be getting replaced with another Partworks company. I'm hearing rumours that there have been some production issues and some distribution issues, meaning some shops haven't been getting all their issues, and that potentially GW are thinking of getting somebody else to finish the Partworks. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It is but the foggiest of rumours I'm hearing from various places. Well, 2 places. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. But kudos for GW for basically working on behalf of the customers. Anyway, back to the White Scars. They're really cool. A lot of their background is based on the Mongols, the Mongolian hordes, Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan or Temujin Khan. Coincidentally, not coincidentally, but yeah, not even coincidentally, but one of the most genetically successful people on the planet. But anyway, the White Scars are run by a Primarch, or were run by a Primarch called Jukta Khan. They have got a badass in charge of them now, but I'm not entirely sure what his name is because I don't play them. Bold warriors, oh, for crying out loud. Sorry guys. Bold warriors with a savage appearance, the White Scars are feared across the galaxy. They are amongst the best hunters in the Imperium, using their ultra-fast vehicles to deploy their forces swiftly and make sure that the enemy's first sight of them is also their last. The White Scar chapter hails from Trigoris, a feral planet covered in vast windswept plains. The controlled savages of the White Scars is a heritage of their Primarch, Jukta Khan, and the wild nomadic tribes warriors that populate again, Trigoris. I may be mispronouncing it. Feel free to correct me in the comments there, guys. Despite their reputation for violence, the White Scars are brave and honourable. Are a brave and honourable chapter who have a strong sense of honour passed down to them by their Primarch. The lightning-fast hit-and-run tactics employed by the White Scars have served well for thousands of years. Again, they're another one of the good guy chapters. There is a certain leaning in GW that the more complex chapters and the more civilized chapters tended to be the ones that fell, whereas the more brutal chapters and the more kind of naturalistic chapters, like the Space Wolves, tend to be ones that stood. I think a lot of GW sort of looked to the past with kind of rose-tinted glasses. Yeah, the Space Wolves being Vikings, are sort of free and wild. These guys being based on the nomadic tribal heritage. Again, they're sort of free, they're wild, they can do all the nasty things that the Fallen chapters do, yet somehow not be as negatively affected by it. You know, the guys seeking perfection, you know, the Emperor's children seeking perfection fell to Slanesh. The Thousand Sons seeking esoteric knowledge fell to Zench. The ones who are kind of happy in their place, you know, and their place being that sort of violent and noble savages, tended to survive. Even the Ultramarines had a very sort of romantic, historic ideal. So, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff there. The more civilized, and again, the Word Bearers being a more civilized or more like organized religion worshipful chapter, again, kind of fell there. A lot of the stuff that was more civilized turned uncivilized, and a lot of stuff that was less civilized turned out to be more civilized, which I think is something we can all agree with, that sort of feeling of nostalgia about older times, but that seems to be very much a recurring theme in some of the GW literature. But the White Scars, again, good guys. They're vicious, they're brutal, and they like moving quickly. Got the Born in the Saddle bit here. Nomadic horse riding warriors of Trigoris are said to be born in the saddle, learning to ride before they can walk. Those who rise to the ranks of White Scars do not lose this talent for mounted combat. They apply it to the vehicles of the Adeptus Astartes instead. It is said that a White Scar spaceman is never truly at ease unless he is fighting on or in an armoured war machine. So we can see that they're very much about the mechanized. They're very much about the high speed, getting into the enemy before the enemy has a chance to lay waste to anything. Those are the tactics they also try and use on the battlefield, which has led to a lot of people querying when Primaris Marines might be getting bikes, speeders, or fast attack units. At this point, they've got some kind of fast attack units in the Reavers. They've got some drop units and some jet units, but none of them are dedicated assault. None of them are dedicated fast attack. They're just capable of doing that quite well. It's doubtful, I think, that they will get anything dedicated. They seem to be very much based on the "this is your job" battlefield role rather than philosophical roles. They're supposed to be much more like the old heresy stuff. But but it's entirely possible that they're going to get bikes or they're going to get land speeders at some point that they can fit in. So that might be something cool coming up in the future. Yeah. As I say, people have been sort of postulating when they're going to get that, because Wastecards are getting a lot of love lately. Historically, they're not one of the chapters that's received love. They're not Space Wolves, they're not Ultramarines or Blood Angels or Dark Angels, etc. They've been one of the ones that they've been around, but they've never really been focused on heavily. But GW are really sort of spreading love amongst their Marines right now. You're getting a lot of nice stuff in the Wastecards, both in GW's main sites and on Forge World. You've been getting some more stuff for Imperial Fists and bits and pieces like that. So it's really nice to see GW giving consideration to all the Space Marine players. I think some of the Xenos players might want some love as well, though. Okay, next we've got Legacy of Secrets, a Legacy of Secrecy. Across the galaxies, the Dark Angels strike without warning and vanish without explanation. They have defended. Freudian slip there. The Imperium for millennia, but the secret hunt for the treacherous fallen consumes and guides their every move. Got a nice bit here. Another sort of chronological set of stories and factettes, going through what the Dark Angels are and what happened to them, where they came from, and why they're hunting down the fallen. Nice cool stuff here and nice bits and pieces. I'm not going to go into it too much detail because there are some cool reveals about the Dark Angels which I'm sure are in here. I should point out a lot of this stuff, just to reiterate, I'm opening this in front of you and I'm not pausing the camera to read through it. I'm reviewing it as you see me review it. So if I make a few errors, that's because I haven't read the content. I'm discovering it as you guys discover it. That's really, just so you guys can enjoy the experience. Here we've got some info on the Space Marine scout bikes. Not surprisingly, because of their speed and because of their sort of ability to survive somewhat on their own, Space Marine scouts use bikes as well. Increases their toughness to 5. So your Space Marine scout is as tough as a standard biker and slightly tougher than a Marine. Doesn't increase their armor save, unfortunately, so they do die like scout. They do still die like scouts. But the scout bikes are basically the same as normal bikes. They just take scouts on them, so they get things like the infiltration rule, which is really cool. The ability to come from different table edges or deploy in the enemy's part of the table and so on and so forth is really good. Particularly if you've got bikes, because it means you can put yourself where you need to be. Again, haven't used the standard Space Marines in 8th Ed, so not specifically sure about those. But I know that in 7th Ed and the previous Eds, the ability to put explosives, weapons, bombs anywhere on the table was always very, very useful. Didn't get used so much by Space Marines because Space Marine scouts could already do that because they were badasses. But here we've got some more stuff about the Space Marines and about the Wastecards and even, about the Space Marines and about the Wastecards and the Scout bikes. So more cool stuff. You haven't got Scout bikes. I don't think they're in the setup, but it's not too expensive to get them. They are relatively cheap and they're not a terrible addition to your force by any means. Next, Xenos. At long last, we're having a look at the world outside of Space Marines. So far, we've looked at Space Marines and Fallen Space Marines. Here, you've got some stuff based on the Xenos. Picture there, you've got a Necron killing some Eldar. So one of the Elder races killing one of the most ancient races. For those of you unfamiliar with the background, the first race born was the Old Ones, and they were immortal, and they did wonderful things, and they were all intelligent and peaceful and hipster and clever. Then a second race turned up, and this race was brutish, had short, pain-filled lives, and basically sucked, and they hated the Old Ones. Now, the background used to be, but it's been slightly retconned, so you have to bear with me, that they were approached, they figured out ways to augment their bodies to keep themselves alive, And then they discovered the Catan, giant, intelligent, spacefaring beings that would feed off the dust of stars. Now, they learned that they could feed the Catan the energy of living beings, and that it was like candy to the Catan, or possibly cocaine. And they used this to bribe the Catan into helping them fight the Old Ones. The Catan, in turn, convinced them that they'd be much better off fighting the Old Ones if they shifted their entire bodies into synthetic bodies that wouldn't die, so they could live forever like the Catan and the Old Ones. So the Necrons did that. The Necrons then realised that they'd been tricked. Their new bodies were robotic bodies. They didn't have proper emotions anymore. They were alive and sentient and self-aware, but they weren't what they had been. They were much more cold, machine-like creatures in cold, unfeeling bodies for, trapped and entombed forever. Which is why they then turned on the Catan and ripped them to pieces and enslaved them. But they also turned and fought a war against the Old Ones, which was the first war. It was the war that first started chaos, as the Old Ones either created races or co-opted them. The Orcs, humanity, and the Eldar supposedly being races that were either A, created, or B, adapted by the Old Ones to use in their battle. And the reason that all these races share psychic abilities was because where neither the Catan nor the Eldar had psychic powers or access to the warp, and the Old Ones did, the Old Ones used the human races to basically pull the power from the warp and channel it into weapons that they could use against the Necrons and the Catan. They, because they didn't really have a defense for it, they didn't really have a way of fighting against it. Hence, the Necrons later developed a technology to make cyborgs that have any blanks or pariah or psychic pariah that they call, in order to provide a countermeasure. Now, the Old Ones were very few in number because they were immortal. They only reproduced very slowly, whereas the Catan, be it living short, brutish, painful lives, reproduced much more quickly. And because once they moved to having bodies made out of necrodermis, they could regenerate their bodies and come back to life, albeit having lost a little bit of themselves. Eventually, they basically wore the Old Ones out. But in doing so, they were kind of defeated. They were utterly devastated and had to go into a long hibernation period, because not only they destroyed a lot of the Old Ones, they destroyed a lot of the galaxy in general, and they'd taken massive amounts of damage themselves. And whilst they were able to kind of wipe out the Old Ones, they didn't win. They in fact lost. The Old Ones kind of won, but the Old Ones, being living beings, there was like so few of them left, they were no longer sustainable. So the Necrons went to sleep for thousands of years, A, to regenerate, and B, to let the Old Ones die out. And the races that the Old Ones created or twisted, the humans, the Orcs, the Eldar, who knows what else, suddenly came up. But supposedly it's also one of the reasons why Tau don't have psychic powers, because they weren't around when the Old Ones were tampering, so they weren't given psychic powers. The Old Ones are responsible, supposedly, for the connection that most races in the galaxy have to the warp. So that's a cool thing. The Eldar were one of those races. Supposedly the Old One's ultimate psychic weapon, hence the Eldar are so massively psychic, and hence why the Eldar were able to almost single-handedly bring about the birth of Slanesh. Supposedly, that's why Orcs function the way they do, not because they didn't evolve, they were designed. That's why when Orcs get to a certain population number, they start developing technology. When they get to another population number, they start dividing into specific sects. Weird boys, mech boys, and things like that, because it's all actually pre-programmed in the Orc DNA. That's why they're fungicidal. That's why they're a fungal life form, so that if they all get wiped out, new Orcs will just grow up from the ground, and there's another basically complete army. That's why the Orcs are almost a perfectly engineered weapon, which is quite cool. But anyway, the Xenos threat. It goes through here about how cool they are, how the galaxy is full of aliens who seek to destroy humanity. The Many imperial planets were seized from Xenos races long ago, some during humanity's first waves of colonization. The existence of the majority of these aliens has long since been forgotten. This explains why strange remnants of alien civilizations are sometimes uncovered in humans' world, buried beneath the layers of human construction. So it basically goes through that. It's not really going into too much detail about specific Xenos races, although here we've got the Drukhari, who are the Dark Elder, kind of soulless beings that are going to be eaten when they die. You've got the Tyranids there, who are so alien they're not even from this universe. They're a biological species that it's believed they ate everything in their own galaxy, and so they've come to this galaxy. Yeah, basically, yeah, they've come to the Milky Way from another galaxy, and they're hungry, and they're going to breed. They've never gone into how intelligent, or whether the hive mind is, or whether it has a personality, but it's got to be reasonably intelligent to guide ships, to build ships, and things like that. Even though they seem to fight in an almost animalistic way. And then you've got the Eldari, once ruled a vast empire, only to fall due to their own depravity. The Eldari and the Drukhari are both Eldar. They both came from the same thing, which was the Eldar Empire. It's just as it fell and got depraved, the Drukhari are the ones that survived the destruction of the Empire. The Eldari tend to be the ones that either were an outlying planets, so didn't get affected, or were able to run away in ships. The Eldari really being much more of a faithful representation of what the Elder race really wanted to be, whereas the Drukhari kind of a bit of a representation of what it ended up being. So there's cool stuff there. Next, we've got Nurgle demons. I'm going to try and pronounce this right. Horticulus Slimax, Nurgle's gardener. Nurgle's garden is vast in size and filled with teeming life. Even the garden of a god requires a gardener, however. And this role belongs to the demon known as Horticulus, from the same word as horticulture. Slimax, foul of mood but dedicated in his craft, he is known as the Great Cultivator. We can see from the picture there that he is a plague demon, a talisman of Nurgle, basically a middling rank demon. The one-eyed sort of plague demons that you get, they are generally considered to be kind of like accountants slash taxmen, and so they've got these very grey, depressing, life-sucking jobs that nobody likes. Again, this was done in the 80s, where taxmen were not held in high regard as they are today. The plague bearers of Nurgle do the jobs that have to be done, rather than the jobs everybody wants to do. They don't lead exciting, glorious lives. They're not happy, like the greater demons. They're not happy puppies like the beasts, nor are they bumbling animals and baby type things like the snotlings. They're the responsible ones in the Nurgle pantheon. So that's quite cool. I mean, it's quite depressing, but it's meant to be. It's also worth noting that if you die, they're one of the few demons that are actually often created from mortal stock, because if you die from Nurgle's rot, which is one of Nurgle's diseases, you get resurrected as a plague bearer, carrying Nurgle's rot amongst other diseases. So, I suppose it's a way into demonhood. I'm not sure how much of the human survives, but yeah. So this guy could have been human once, you don't know. With a thump of his tumour-hardened foot on the shell of his faithful mount, a snail-like creature known affectionately as Mulch, Horticulus Slimax rise to battle. It is not the quickest of chargers, but what it lacks in speed, it makes up for in sheer toxicity. Horticulus Slimax has been Nurgle's head gardener since before time, so possibly not a human, but then again, who knows? It does say things like before time, but being as we know these beings came into existence as a reaction to the darker and more twisted emotions of sentient beings, it just means for as long as anyone can remember. Horticulus has an eye for tending the diseased plant growths so beloved by Nurgle. None knows better when to deadhead a skull rose, divide up a witch-spike shrub, or graft new tendrils together to make an entirely new flora. yes, basically he maintains Nurgle's realm because, well, if you believe, a lot of the chaos things are affected by what humanity believes. So if you believe Nurgle has a garden, I guess you've got to believe that Nurgle has a gardener. I'm going to say affected by belief. I don't necessarily mean like the Terry Pratchett things where if enough people believe it, it exists, although there is certainly a certain degree of that within the warp, but rather because he's made up of the emotions of humanity, of the emotions of the Eldar, there is going to be a certain mirroring in the Chaos Gods of the creatures on whose emotions they are they feed or are composed of. So because because Nurgle has a fairly good eye for simile, he wants a garden because he believes he's a god of life and as well as plague and death. So he probably wanted a gardener as well. Nurgle moves in cycles. After seeing his grand cultivator at work in his garden for a time, the god of decay senses the need for change and sends horticulturists in to replace the plant, into real space to plant his seeds. There is none better at spreading the glorious growth of the garden. So, as with many guys, he's got his own coolness as well. Here's the model. Frankly, it is one of the most awesome models. You've got a little Nurgling there to move mulch along. You've got little bits back there which could act as anchors to slow him, or just as bits to drag furrows through the garden. He's got a couple of weird plants there, plants at the back, including a little sort of Audrey from the Little Shop of Horror style thing, and you can see his spears there. You can't tell from that picture, but if I go back to the original one, you can see him holding them above his head. They're kind of like big garden shears, but very primitive and very brutal. He's got the standard plague builder thing of one large eye and one horn, although his is off to the side and he has some smaller eyes to the side. Frankly, it's a fantastic model. It's really good. I really like it. It's one of the few things that does kind of attract me to Nurgle, is some of the really kind of human touches that they put into the Plague God stuff. It goes more here and more. It goes through more here about Horticulus. Says he's a humorless being with a no-nonsense approach, which is what you'd expect from a gardener. Got a quote from him: "Reality disgusts me, mulch. Let us sow the glorious seeds of Nurgle's garden throughout this cursed realm." So, whilst it's a very fun model, he doesn't appear to be a very fun guy. So check him out, read about him. I don't think you could make a mistake buying a model that fucking, pardon my language, that amazing. So that's a lot of fun there. Now we've got our how to build. It's going through how to build the Space Marine bikes, how to put them together, how you want to assemble them. They're a little more awkward than some things, so do read those instructions. I may have previously said it, you might want to consider glue tacking some of the bits on before you stick them, because sometimes they don't quite sit right in the saddle and you just want to make sure you've got everything positioned. Because the arms, sometimes you might find that you've lent the torso a little too far back and then the arms actually don't quite reach back or don't quite reach to the handles. So glue tacking it first so you're sure where you're gluing and so you've got the sizings right can be a useful thing. I've got the knack of it now. I haven't got it wrong in the last bunch of bikes I built, or the bunch before that, but that's because I did cock it up a lot when I was younger. I had loads of bikes as a kid and none of them quite fit. Fortunately, the shoulder pads really cover any problems. That's one of the beauty of the shoulder pads, the pauldrons in the Marines, is they do cover up any minor arm sticking problems if you're trying to twist them into weird angles. But I found blue tacking was a better way of doing it. Here it's going through what you want to do, how you want to paint your bike, how you want to base coat it. Whoop! Yeah, the pages are coming out. I'm just going to stick that page back in. Get in there. Yeah, you do want to get folders for these. These won't hold. These do not hold together. It's gone through all the colours: Abaddon black, Retributor armour, Death Guard green, Lead Belcher, Mephiston red, and Celestia grey, giving you a little key there to tell you which colours it's using. And again, it's got all the colours there. The paint guides here are really good. If you follow them, you will get a really good, there's some more stuff there. There's going on about painting the helmet red. One in every squad of Ultramarines is a sergeant, and the sergeants have their paintings red. As I say, have their helmets painted red. If you follow these, it might not look as good as this if you're first starting, but if you keep doing it, keep practicing, then eventually you're going to get a really good model. Yeah, as I said, it's got the sergeant head there as an option. You can paint one of you guys with a sergeant head. Worth noting that in the original Ultramarines, originally in the Ultramarines, the red helmet was actually a symbol of censure. It meant you'd done something wrong. It was the Ultramarine equivalent of a dunce helm. It was only in the battle over Calth that Robert Gilligan reassigned it. Basically, because there were no sergeants, he said, right, guys with the red helmet, the guys with the red helmets are in charge because we're fighting against the word bearers and they know all our tactics. I want nutters that have gone against tactics. And a lot of the red helm stuff was for going against tactics, for doing your own thing, doing your own thing and having it not really be what they wanted you to do. And that tended to be what you got censure for. Possibly that and alcoholism. Maybe there were a bunch of drunk Ultramarines fighting in Calth. Explains a lot. Sorry. I've got some dust in my hair and it's just not getting out. Sorry, guys. So that's a nice little bit of history there behind the red helms. After Calth, painting your helmet red became the way of finding a sergeant. Simply because of that battle and because Robert realised that when going against other Space Marines, his numbers were going to be so decimated that he was going to need to form squads on the fly, and there's always going to be, right, red helmet, you're a sergeant, and apparently red paint was easily available, I guess. So that's a cool little bit of history there. And here we go, we've got another little bit of story preceding the next mission, which is nifty. And dash for the banner, which sounds very much like capture the flag. Two guys deploying either side. Victory conditions: eliminate the enemy units, eliminate the enemy warlord. At the end of the battle, if a player from the model is carrying the banner, then that player gains 3 victory points, and the game lasts for 5 rounds. So yeah, it's basically capture the flag, but with one flag in the center. So that's pretty cool. The armies on this one, you've got the Mephitic Blight Hauler, the Foul Blight Spawn, the Fetid Bloat Drone, and again, 12 Poxwalkers and 10 Cultists, giving you a lot of models to move and making up for the fact that, you're not going to be as fast as the guys on the other side of the pitch. My voice is cracking here. Sorry about that, guys. The Space Marines, Death Guard have 3 command points. 3 Space Marine bikes, a Land Speeder, 5 Reavers, 5 Space Marine Scouts, and Lieutenant Calcius. So the Reavers can move quickly through the scenery, can start ahead. The Land Speeder can move quickly, and the Space Marine bikes can move quickly. So you are going to get there first. Whether or not you hold it is another matter. The Reavers will give you a bit of firepower, as will the Space Marine Scouts, and the Land Speeders and bikes will give you a lot of mobility. So you're going to be out there first, and you're going to be shooting first. So that's going to be great. And Lieutenant Calcius is always useful as well. So that's another really cool little battle there. Right, onto the bit that I know a lot of you like. Next week we're getting next week we're getting Typhus. Forgot to mention, price-wise, last week's issue was $7.99 and we got about $4.70s worth. This week's issue is $7.99 and we're getting $7.50s worth. $22.50 for a pack of 3 bikes, divides down to $7.50 each. So we're overpaying by about 50p. So the magazine itself is costing you effectively 50p. You could easily argue these magazines are worth more than 50p, and I reckon they're worth a good couple of quid of anybody's money. So that works out well, in my opinion. We're not we're not getting conned, we're not making out like bandits like we have been on some of the other issues, but at the same time, you're getting something that's worth it. It is, but again, it is one of the few magazines where it's not paying for itself and then some. You know, you are in fact paying some money for the magazine. Anyway, yes. Here we have Typhus next week. This is going to be, I've advised, about £25, which puts up there with some of the bigger unit guide, some of the bigger magazines with best value for money. And then after that, more scenery. We've got the Mechanicus Alchemite Pipes, which is another tall line of sight blocking the piece of scenery. Worth noting that this bit, and the bit on top of there, and that big bit there are all separate pieces, so you don't have to stick them together. You can have them as a bunch of separate bits and pieces, you know, spread across, or you can make one big set piece, whichever you like. Again, when we get to it, I'll go over the price of that one. I'm not sure exactly how much it costs, and I do know those pipes were available in some of the Kill Team starter sets, and those pipes were available in some of the other starter sets, the scenery starter sets. So any price is a rough price. So I will see you guys next week when we will be looking at Typhus. And remember, next week Typhus will be going up to be won. So tune in if you're a Death Guard player. Tell your friends if they're Death Guard players, because they'll have a chance to win Typhus. Right, I'm just going to pause this for a second. I'm back. Right, if you want to win 1, 2, 3 bikes for the value of about £22.50, comment on the bottom of the page, and next week you'll be drawn out, or a dice will be rolled to see who's won these. Once again, please spread the word, let other people know. The more subscribers I can get to this page, the cooler it is. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Grindr and Instagram. One of those might not have been a real thing. So there's other stuff I do as well. So feel free to follow me on any of those mediums, guys. And I will see you next week. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did, remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. Not sure why, but I am. So if you like it, see me there, and please tell your friends. Thanks very much. Bye.